On an October afternoon as the sun began to set, Linda Foster was busily moving about the pediatric ward of Massachusetts General Hospital. Though she had been a nurse for 12 years, seeing the children's smiles was still her driving force. "Linda, wasn't it time for you to pick up your child?" her colleague Nancy called out. Linda looked at her watch and let out a small sigh. "I'll finish up in about 10 minutes. David said he could get home early today, so he should be able to pick up Tommy." As if summoned by his name, her smartphone rang. Her husband's name appeared on the screen. "David, what is it?" "Sorry, Linda. A sudden meeting came up, and I don't think I can pick up Tommy." Linda frowned. "All right. I'll ask Nancy if I can leave a little early." After hanging up, Linda hurriedly finished her remaining duties, thanked her colleague, and left the hospital. She walked briskly toward the preschool. When she arrived, she could see her son Tommy through the classroom window. With his round eyes and brown curly hair, he was drawing with an expression too serious for a 5-year-old. Just seeing him made Linda's fatigue vanish. "Tommy, Mommy's here." Tommy looked up, immediately smiled, jumped down from his chair, and ran over. "Mommy. Look, I drew a dinosaur." Linda picked up her son and kissed him on the cheek. "That's wonderful. Let's put it on the refrigerator when we get home." When the two returned home, there was a message from David. "I'll be late today. Go ahead and eat without me." Linda let out a small sigh. Her husband worked at a real estate development company and had been busy with a new project lately. He was a good husband and a good father, but there was no denying that his busy work schedule was taking away from family time. "Where's Daddy?" Tommy looked up at Linda from the sofa. "He says he'll be late with work today. Let's make some macaroni and cheese, just the two of us." While preparing dinner, Linda called her mother. "Mom, what time was the dinner party this weekend?" From the other end of the phone, Barbara Watson's stern voice resonated. 6 o'clock sharp. Don't be late." Linda's mother Barbara was a former high school teacher who always valued punctuality. Her perfectionism was reflected in how she raised her daughters. Especially with Linda, she constantly reminded her that the eldest daughter should have a sense of responsibility. "Is Jennifer coming?" Linda mentioned her sister's name. "Yes, she said she's bringing her new boyfriend." There was expectation mixed in Barbara's voice. Linda couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Her sister Jennifer was still changing romantic partners one after another. Each time, their mother would expect, "This is the one," and when Jennifer would break up, she'd console her with, "Poor thing." In contrast, Linda's marriage was stable, but she rarely received praise from her mother. "I understand. David will be coming too, so we'll make sure not to be late." After hanging up, Linda prepared a plate for Tommy. As they sat at the table, her son began talking about the fun things that happened that day. Looking at his innocent smile, Linda savored her happiness. That weekend, Linda's family headed to her mother's house. Surrounded by a well-kept garden in the suburbs, it was where Linda had grown up. As she opened the front door, she could already hear Jennifer's voice. In the living room sat her sister and a man she hadn't met before. "Linda. Come over here. Mike, this is my sister Linda." Jennifer worked as a hairstylist at a local salon. Her hairstyle always reflected the latest trends, and today she had vibrant red highlights. Mike turned up the corners of his mouth and extended his hand toward Linda. "Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you from Jennifer." Linda responded politely, but something felt off. Was it her imagination, or was there instability in Mike's eyes? "Tommy, go say hello to Grandma," Linda gently pushed her son's back. Tommy ran to Barbara, who was in the kitchen. "Grandma." "My, Tommy. You've grown so big," Barbara embraced her grandson. Dinner was her mother's specialty, roast beef, and the conversation was dominated by Jennifer and Mike's story. They had met during surfing lessons. "Mike works for a construction company. He's so strong," Jennifer gazed at him with eyes of someone in love. "Is that so?" Linda smiled, but she felt uncomfortable with the glances Mike occasionally cast at Tommy. After the meal, Linda helped her mother in the kitchen. Jennifer seems happy, Barbara said with satisfaction. Yes, she does, Linda answered vaguely. Why don't you take a page from Jennifer's book? Linda frowned. What do you mean? Isn't it a bit boring, living the same days over and over? Just as she was about to counter, Tommy came running in. Mommy, can I go to the pool with Auntie? Linda looked at her son and regained her smile. Of course, but make sure she watches you. That night, in the car on the way home, Tommy suddenly said, Mommy, I'm scared of that man. Linda asked while driving, why? Tommy fell silent and said nothing more. Linda and David exchanged glances. After returning home, once Tommy was asleep, Linda said to her husband. My business trips have been increasing lately, right? I'm worried about who to leave Tommy with. Why not ask Jennifer? David suggested. Linda wore an expression of hesitation. Her sister was certainly reliable, but something didn't feel right. Still, she decided to ask her. I'll call Jennifer tomorrow. My Chicago business trip has been extended until next month. Linda gripped her cell phone as she told David. The winter wind of Boston could be heard tapping against the windows in the living room. That's tough, David put down his coffee cup and put his arm around her shoulder. But it's a chance for promotion, isn't it? Linda nodded. In her career as a pediatric nurse, participating in a nationwide pediatric healthcare project was a valuable opportunity. However, being away from her 5-year-old son weighed heavily on her heart. I'm worried about Tommy, she gazed out the window. You're also working early mornings and late nights. Let's ask Jennifer, David suggested. She's flexible, and Tommy is fond of her. Linda took a deep breath. She had left Tommy with Jennifer a few times since last month, but each time something felt off, especially when Jennifer's boyfriend Mike was there. Still, having family watch over her child was a great comfort. Yes, I'll contact Jennifer. The next day, Linda visited her sister's apartment. Jennifer opened the door and greeted her with her usual bright smile. Chicago, how nice. I'm jealous, Jennifer said as she poured coffee. Don't worry about Tommy. I'll take care of him. It really helps. But the days I need you to watch him will increase. Is that okay? No problem, Jennifer winked. I can adjust my shifts, and Mike loves kids, so he'll help out. The moment Mike's name was mentioned, anxiety spread through Linda's chest. She gripped her cup. Mike, does he come over often? Almost every day. We're planning to live together soon, Jennifer's eyes sparkled. He's really a wonderful person. Linda forced a smile. I see, that's good. As she was leaving, Linda mustered the courage to say, Jenny, when you're watching Tommy, could you possibly look after him by yourself? Jennifer looked puzzled. Why? Did Mike do something? No, that's not it, Linda quickly made an excuse. It's just that Tommy takes time to adjust to new environments. Jennifer seemed a bit dissatisfied but agreed. I understand, as much as possible. About 2 weeks after the business trip began, Linda was talking to Tommy via video call from her hotel in Chicago. Mommy, come back soon, Tommy's voice had a stronger urgency than usual. I will soon, Tommy. Are you doing well? Is Auntie being nice? Tommy was silent for a moment before answering. Yes, but Uncle Mike comes every day. Linda's heart skipped a beat. I see, did something happen? No, Tommy averted his eyes. Then he added in a small voice, Uncle is scary when he drinks. In the background of the video call, Jennifer's voice could be heard. Tommy, go wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready. Tommy quickly said, Bye, Mommy, and the call ended. Linda called David. He was also on a business trip but was scheduled to return the next day. Tommy seems strange. It looks like Mike is coming over every day. Did something specific happen? David's voice was mixed with concern. Tommy said Uncle Mike is scary when he drinks. On the other end of the phone, David let out a deep sigh. I'll pick up Tommy as soon as I get back tomorrow. However, the next day, David called to inform her of a change of plans. An important client meeting had come up, and he wouldn't be able to return to Boston until the weekend. Linda contacted her mother. Mom, could you take Tommy from Jennifer and look after him for a few days? Barbara sounded surprised. What's wrong? Did Jennifer do something? No, it's just. Linda chose her words. I'm a bit worried about Mike. Oh, Linda, Barbara's voice was as critical as ever. There you go being anxious again. Jennifer seems very happy. Mike is the best man for her. But Tommy. Children sometimes have too much imagination, Barbara declared. Besides, I have plans to go to a spa with friends this weekend. I can't postpone it. Linda gave up and hung up. She felt heaviness throughout her body. Though she had no proof that Tommy wasn't safe, her maternal instinct was warning her. When the weekend passed and Linda finally returned to Boston, David had also returned home. The two went to Jennifer's apartment to pick up Tommy. Mike opened the door. He looked a bit surprised to see them. Hey, you're back early. Linda tried to smile, but the muscles in her face were tense. We've come to pick up Tommy. Tommy. Mom and Dad are here. Mike's voice was bright, but his eyes were cold. Tommy ran out from the living room. As soon as he saw his parents, he rushed over and clung to Linda's legs. Are you all right? Linda asked while stroking Tommy's head. Tommy nodded, but he didn't have his usual vitality. Linda noticed a small bruise on his arm. She frowned. What happened here? I fell, Tommy answered in a small voice. On the stairs. Jennifer poked her head out from the kitchen. Oh, Linda, David. Tommy's been so active. Yesterday he was running around and fell. Linda stared into her sister's eyes. It seemed like she was hiding something. I see, she said quietly. Let's go home, Tommy. When they got home, Linda gave Tommy a bath. There was another bruise on his back. Tommy, did you really fall on the stairs? Tommy remained silent, staring at the water's surface. You can tell Mommy if something happened, Linda said gently. I won't be angry. Tommy finally looked up. Tears were welling in his eyes. Mommy, Auntie's house is scary. Why is it scary? Linda's heart was racing. Uncle Mike. Tommy cut off mid-sentence. Then he added in a small voice, it's a secret. I'm not supposed to tell. Linda embraced Tommy with trembling hands. Alarms were ringing in her head. It's okay, now, Tommy. You don't have to go there anymore. That night, Linda and David had a long talk. They contacted Barbara again and explained the situation, but she dismissed them. You always exaggerate. Jennifer is the best aunt. Linda gave up and hung up. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall quietly. She went to check on Tommy's sleeping face. He was sleeping peacefully, but occasionally she could see him frown. I'll protect you, Linda made a small vow. No matter what. Linda's cell phone rang while she was working at the hospital. She hesitated for a moment at the unknown number, but thinking it might be an important message, she answered the phone in a corner of the nurse's station. Is this Linda Foster? A young woman's voice was heard. There's been an emergency at Jennifer Watson's house. Your son Tommy has had an accident. At that moment, Linda's world stopped. Her heart beat violently as if it would jump out of her chest, and her mind went blank. The words she finally squeezed out were trembling. Where is Tommy? He's been taken to Memorial Hospital's emergency room. He's unconscious. Linda hung up, gave a brief explanation to her colleague, and rushed out of the hospital. She jumped into a taxi and asked the driver to hurry. The scenery of the city seen from the car window felt like another world, far away. When she arrived at Memorial Hospital, Linda rushed into the emergency entrance. After giving her son's name at the nurse station, she was immediately guided. The moment she opened the door to the treatment room, Linda's knees almost gave way. Tommy's small body was surrounded by various medical equipment. His face was pale, and his head was wrapped in bandages. "Tommy." She rushed to her son's bed. The attending physician approached. "Mrs. Foster, your son has suffered drowning and head injuries. He's currently on life support, but his condition is extremely critical." Why did this happen?" Linda's voice was hoarse. The doctor quietly explained. "He was found in the pool at his aunt's house. He may have hit his head when he fell." At that time, Jennifer's crying voice could be heard from the hallway. Linda turned around and saw her sister sobbing, surrounded by doctors. Mike was nowhere to be seen. "Jennifer," Linda called in a low voice. Her sister looked up and saw Linda with red, swollen eyes. "Linda. I'm sorry. I only took my eyes off him for a few minutes." Linda pushed away Jennifer's hand. Why was Tommy near the pool? In winter. Mike was heating the jacuzzi. "I was just answering the phone. When I came back, Tommy was." Jennifer's words were drowned out by tears. Linda couldn't say anything. In her mind, Tommy's voice saying, "Auntie's house is scary," echoed repeatedly. David arrived an hour later. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide with fear. "Why?" Linda cried in her husband's arms. The two sat on either side of Tommy's bed, holding their son's hands. "Tommy, Mommy and Daddy are here," Linda whispered. "Please wake up." That night, the doctors did their best. However, the severe brain damage and complications from water entering the lungs were too harsh for Tommy's small body. The next morning, the doctor told them, "I'm sorry, but there's almost no brain activity. He's approaching what we call brain death." Linda was speechless. If David hadn't supported her, she would have collapsed on the spot. "How much time?" David's voice broke off. "A few days at most," the doctor said quietly. "I recommend you prepare to say goodbye." From that day on, Linda and David took turns sitting by Tommy's bedside. Linda read books to her son and talked about memories. As a nurse, she knew the importance of families talking to their loved ones in their final moments. On the third day after the accident, Tommy's condition suddenly changed. The doctors attempted resuscitation, but the small heart finally stopped beating. Time of death, 6:17 p.m., the doctor's voice echoed quietly. Linda embraced her son's small body and rocked back and forth as if singing a lullaby to a baby in a cradle. David placed his hand on his wife's shoulder and silently shed tears. The next day, Linda called her mother. "Mom, Tommy has passed away." On the other end of the phone, Barbara gasped. "No, why didn't you let me know?" "I left several messages on your voicemail." Linda's voice was empty. "I was at the spa with friends," Barbara made an excuse. "How's Jennifer? Is she okay?" Linda frowned at her mother's words. "Mom, Tommy is dead." "Your grandson?" "Of course, I'm sad about that." Barbara's voice was mixed with agitation. "But it was an accident, right? Jennifer must be blaming herself." Linda hung up in dismay. She sat on the bed and buried her face in the pillow. A photo frame of Tommy was placed by the bedside. It was a picture from his 5th birthday, Tommy sitting with a big smile in front of his cake. Funeral arrangements were made with the help of David's parents. Linda's parents were divorced, and her father had passed away a few years ago. She tried contacting Barbara many times, but the responses were vague. The day before the funeral, Linda was talking with the hospital chaplain. As a nurse, she had witnessed many deaths, but the pain of losing her own child was beyond imagination. "Should I prepare something to tell Tommy?" Linda asked. The chaplain smiled gently. "Writing a farewell letter can be part of the healing process." That night, Linda began writing a letter to Tommy. However, her pen stopped midway. She took out Tommy's drawing paper and crayons from the drawer and began drawing a picture like her son often did. And instead of a letter to Tommy, she wrote a different letter, one supposedly from Tommy to his grandmother. On the day of the funeral, the small church was decorated with flowers. A dinosaur stuffed animal that Tommy had loved was placed beside the small coffin. Linda sat in her black mourning clothes, supported by David. There weren't many attendees, but Linda's colleagues and Tommy's preschool teachers had come. Just before the funeral began, Linda called her mother again. "Mom, it's about to start. Can you come?" Barbara's voice was hesitant. "Linda, I'm truly sorry, but..." Jennifer won't stop crying from the shock of her breakup. "I can't leave her alone." Linda let out a cold laugh on the other end of the phone. "A breakup? When Tommy has died? You know, Mike abandoned her and disappeared." Jennifer is completely distraught. "I understand," Linda said quietly. "I'm going to my son's funeral." After hanging up, Linda took a deep breath. David approached and held her hand. "Barbara?" "She's not coming," Linda's voice was hollow. "Jennifer is crying because of a breakup." Anger appeared on David's face. Unbelievable. The funeral began, and the small coffin was placed in front. Linda stood up and stepped forward. Standing in front of the coffin, she held Tommy's picture. There were no tears in her eyes. They had dried up. "Tommy, Mommy will always love you," she whispered. The attendees watched quietly. Linda finally touched Tommy's coffin and quietly returned to her seat. After the funeral, family and friends gathered at their home. But there was no sign of Linda's mother or sister. At night, after everyone had left, Linda finally cried. "Why didn't my family come?" she cried with her face buried in David's chest. David embraced his wife. "We are family, Linda." Late at night, Linda quietly got up and went to the study. She took out the letter she had written in Tommy's name, put it in an envelope, addressed it, and placed it by her pillow, intending to mail it the next morning. A week passed. Linda couldn't return to work and was on leave. David had taken time off for her, but today he had gone to work for an important meeting. The quietness of the house enveloped her, highlighting Tommy's absence. Just after noon, Linda's cell phone rang. Her mother's name was displayed on the screen. She hesitated but answered. "Linda," Barbara's voice was trembling. A letter from Tommy came. Linda took a breath. It was as planned. "Yes," she answered calmly. "What is this?" Barbara's voice was mixed with confusion and fear. "What does this mean?" "You read it, didn't you?" Linda's voice was as cold as ice. "We need to meet," Barbara said, crying. "Right now." Linda agreed. "At the coffee shop in 2 hours." When Linda arrived at the designated cafe, Barbara was already sitting at a table. Unlike her usually perfect appearance, her hair was disheveled, and her makeup was light. There was an opened letter in front of her. "Linda," Barbara tried to stand up, but Linda stopped her with her hand. "Sit down," she said quietly. Linda sat opposite her mother. Between them was just a small envelope and a piece of paper. "What is this?" Barbara's hand trembled. "Tommy is already dead," Linda continued the sentence. "But this is a letter he wrote. I wrote it for him, but they're his words." Barbara shook her head, crying. "Such content. Mike was violent? Jennifer knew? That can't be." "It's true," Linda's voice grew colder. "Tommy had been telling me for 2 weeks before the accident. Uncle Mike is scary when he drinks." "But Jennifer knew," Linda pointed at the letter. "Tommy wrote it, didn't he? Auntie sees but doesn't help me." Barbara covered her face with both hands. "I can't believe it." "The police are tracking Mike," Linda announced calmly. Tommy's body had multiple old injuries from weeks before the accident. "But you knew too," Linda's eyes pierced her mother. "The reason you didn't come to the funeral. It wasn't because of Jennifer's breakup. You were afraid to face the truth." Barbara nodded, crying. Jennifer called me. She confessed that on the day of the accident, Mike was drunk. Apparently Tommy saw something. Linda's heart nearly stopped. What did he see? Mike was using drugs, it seems. Tommy saw that and said he would tell Dad, so. Barbara stumbled over her words. So they tried to silence Tommy? Linda's voice trembled with anger. Barbara shook her head. Mike just meant to threaten him, but Tommy got scared and ran away, and into the pool. And Jennifer covered it up, Linda continued. Mike ran away. You knew the truth but didn't even come to the funeral. I was scared, Barbara said in a trembling voice. I thought Jennifer might be arrested. My son is dead. Linda's voice echoed through the store, and surrounding customers turned around. She lowered her voice. You're not family. Barbara stared at the letter. This last part. Grandma, I'm watching from heaven. Don't forgive the bad people, this is. Tommy's words. Linda stood up. I'm going to the police. I intend to tell them everything. Wait. Barbara hurriedly stood up. I'll go with you. Linda looked at her mother. Determination had appeared in Barbara's eyes. Really? I told Jennifer, Barbara said quietly. She also intends to turn herself in. In the car, Barbara told everything. On the day of the accident, Mike was using drugs, and Tommy witnessed it. Frightened by Mike's threats, Tommy ran away and fell into the covered pool. Jennifer discovered the accident but reported it as a simple accident to hide her collusion with Mike. Mike fled right after the accident, Barbara said. Jennifer kept covering for him, but, seeing the letter, her heart seems to have broken. When they arrived at the police station, surprisingly, Jennifer was already there. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her complexion was as bad as dirt. Linda, Jennifer saw her sister and stood up. I'm sorry, really. Linda looked at her sister with cold eyes. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Tommy. The three were interviewed in separate rooms. Linda told everything. The changes in Tommy's behavior, her concerns before leaving him, and the contents of the letter. In the evening, a police officer approached Linda. Mrs. Foster, we've arrested Mike Donovan. We caught him at the state border. Linda nodded. Thank you. Your sister is also likely to be charged with evidence tampering and involuntary manslaughter, the officer continued. Your mother will continue to cooperate as an important witness. Linda nodded silently. What filled her chest was not a sense of victory, but deep sadness. As she was leaving the police station, Barbara approached her. Linda, can you forgive me? Linda stared at her mother. It will take time. But I think Tommy would forgive you. When she returned home, David was waiting for her. Linda told him everything and cried in her husband's arms. It's finally over, David stroked her head. No, Linda said quietly. It's just beginning. That night, Linda entered Tommy's room. She sat on his small bed, picked up a picture book, and began reading in a small voice, as if her son were there. Justice has prevailed, Tommy, she whispered as she closed the book. Your voice was heard. As the harshness of winter eased and the breath of spring began to be felt in Boston, the trial came to an end. Mike Donovan received an 8-year prison sentence for involuntary manslaughter and drug possession. Jennifer was sentenced to 18 months for evidence tampering and complicity. Linda looked up at the sky as she descended the courthouse steps. It's over, Tommy, she spoke to her son in her heart. David took her hand. Let's go home. A year passed. Linda had returned to work at the hospital but had changed departments from pediatrics to general internal medicine. Seeing children's smiles was still painful for her. Her relationship with David also became precarious for a time. The differences in how they grieved sometimes created a gap. David immersed himself in work, while Linda quietly carried her sorrow. However, with the help of counseling, the two gradually moved closer together. Jennifer had completed her sentence and was on parole. Rumor had it that she had left Boston and started a new life on the West Coast. Her contact with Linda remained severed. Barbara had moved into a nursing home. More than for health reasons, it was probably because she was afraid of the neighbors' eyes. Linda visited her once a month. At first, there were many moments of silence, but gradually conversations began to emerge. "I received a letter from Jennifer," Barbara told Linda one day. "She's teaching at a beauty school in California." Linda nodded. "I see. Will you contact her?" Linda looked out the window. "I don't know yet." On the day of Tommy's third memorial service, Linda and David visited the cemetery. The small gravestone was inscribed with "Thomas David Foster, forever loved." Linda placed fresh flowers and gently touched the surface of the stone. "David, I want to have a child," Linda said quietly. Her husband looked at her with surprised eyes. "Really? It won't replace Tommy," Linda continued. "But I think we still have a place to give love." David embraced her. "Yes, we do." As they were leaving the cemetery, Barbara was waiting in front of the gate. She saw her daughter and son-in-law and timidly approached. "May I come with you?" she asked. After a moment's hesitation, Linda nodded. The three stood quietly before the grave. "I want to talk to Tommy," Barbara said in a trembling voice. "I want to beg for forgiveness." Linda placed her hand on her mother's shoulder. There were no words, but it was the beginning of her own form of forgiveness. On the way back, the three stopped at a cafe. Barbara suddenly said, "What do you think family is?" Linda picked up her coffee cup. "It's not blood ties," she answered quietly. "It's the bond that protects each other and cherishes the truth." Tears welled up in Barbara's eyes. "I failed. But there's still the future," Linda smiled faintly. Outside the window, the spring light brightly illuminated the city. The season of new life was gently enveloping them.